All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm in the JavaScript portion talking client-side web APIs, and we just tried doing an XHR exercise, which, although it did load, did not give me output in here as it was supposed to do, and I'm not sure what the problem is, so I'm going to kind of venture on and see if we can get it to work using fetch. Fetch, as it says, is basically a modern replacement for XHR, introduced recently to make asynchronous HTTP requests easier. So we want to make a copy, it says, of the previous finished example directory. If you didn't work through the previous, create a new directory. Let's see. And the 4 files. So we've done all that. We're going to have to make some changes inside of here. So let's start by doing this. I'm going to grab everything that's here, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to throw this into my fetch folder. Now, a couple things. First off, let's see. All right, I want to make sure that everything I had open previously, so my index and my server file, because they were with the old copy. All right, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to reset my port from 5000 to 3000. I want to make sure that I'm running what I want to run, in other words. And this index file is going to have to be opened, and I'm going to have to make some changes in here too. All right, why? Because this is using XHR, and I want to change it, or at least attempt to change it to work with fetch. So, all right, it says find the XHR code, which is the stuff we had in here. So replace all that XHR code with this. So from the let request through the send. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe I did have this in the wrong place. All right, so it's telling us everything from let request through request.send. So I think that they want us to get rid of that and replace it with this. Now I'm going to try one quick last thing, and that is I'm going to bring up the old one. Oops, I don't want that. I'm going to bring this up, and maybe I had this in the wrong place. Thought I put it exactly where they said to put it, but I'm not sure if I did or not. Let's try putting it in the unload here. Still have that running. Still have that up. And it did nothing. Only other thing I can think of is to take this request.send, try moving it down here, which doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, really? I like it. Well, he would know.
No, still not working. All right. So I am going to get rid of that. In our index.xml file, let me get rid of both of these too. We've been told to replace what we had with this, which was that fetch. All right. Don't know if we're going to need this here or not, so I will comment it out. All right, this is what we're attempting to do right now through the fetch. Load the example and run it. It should work the same. Well, the other one didn't work, so I'm going to see if this one works or not. So this one I have to run through my fetch. And I will say node server.js, which should be running that. And we will come in here, and previously we did this, where we did XHR. Now I want to do this, where it says fetch right there. And unfortunately, I'm getting the same results as before. My guess is it has to do with the order in which I'm doing these operations. All right, rather than you watching me flounder, let me just go over this and I'll see if I can look at it offline and try to fix it. The bottom line is this. What should have happened is when we started running this, this should have presented verse 1 inside of here. All right, then when we switched from verse 1 to verse 2, it should have presented that in here. Verse 3 should have presented that in here. Verse 4 should have presented that in here. Well, you can see that it's not. And this could be for a lot of different reasons. All right. It could be the way that I've got my stuff set up. It could be my directory structure is screwed up, etc. And in fact, I'm going to try one last thing. And that is I'm going to come in here because I don't have an npm init file, which again could be screwing this up. So let me try to stop this run. Start this run again. Oops, I don't want a folder. Oh, my goodness. Don't need that folder. Let me click on here and let me try an npm init. All right, package name is fine. Version, that's fine. I'm just going to take all of the defaults. Okay, so that's now all in there. I've now got that file in there. I don't know if this is going to make any difference, but we're going to see. So I've got that. That's my fetch. And let's clear this and say node server.js. That should run that. Now when we come back here and we refresh, son of a gun. Been a while since I've done any node, so it probably is on me. Stop this. Okay. All right. Well, as you can see, I'm still not getting anything, so I apologize for this. I'll see if there is some kind of an answer key or something for this, see if I can fix it. All right, but let's try to finish or continue on at least. First of all, we invoke the fetch method, passing it the URL of the resource we want to fetch. This is the modern equivalent of a request.open in XHR. All right, after that, you can see the .then that's chained onto the fetch. So let's look at that. So that's right here. This method is part of promises. Well, we talked about promises already. Fetch returns a promise, which resolves to the response set back to the server. We use .then to run some follow-up code after the promise resolves, which is the function we've defined inside of it. This is the equivalent of the onload event. This function is automatically given the response from the server when the fetch promise resolves. Inside of the function, we grab the response, run its text, which basically returns it as raw text. You'll see that the text also returns a promise. Well, again, the bottom line is I would have at least thought that this was going to end up, not this example here, this is the other example, and we'll look at that in the next tape, but that it would have come through here and it would have put that text in there, and it's not doing so. All right. And again, it could be just the way that I set things up could have been wrong. And let me just quickly mention to you that I added in here, in both of these, a package.json file. This just tells the system that when we start running, basically, to start, this is the command that we're going to type in, and that's what I typed in. I can put anything I want in here. I just left it all blank, and it really and truly does not matter. But again, the idea is, short story long, what should have happened is when we came in here, whether we did the AJAX starting point or we did the XHR the fetch starting point. So if we did this starting point with XHR or we did this with fetch, it should have come in here and immediately put verse 1 in here, and then whenever we change to one of the other verses, it should have filled it up in here. One thing I don't understand about this handout right here, because they've done an excellent job all the time of showing us a final form of this, but we don't have that in here. All right, and it's probably because there's different ways that you can go out to a server, etc. So I'm just going to stop right here, and I'm going to finish up this last. Well, let's do this. Promises, it says, are a bit of confusing, but don't worry about them too much for now. It says look at the promise structure. The first line here is saying fetch the resource that's right there and run the specified function. When the promise resolves, then this should run, so it should set up the content of the poem should be set. Effectively, the function passed into then a chunk of code that won't run immediately. Instead, it'll run at some point in the future. Note we could also choose to store the promise in a variable and then chain it so it would have looked like this. All right. Because the fetch method returns a promise that resolves to the HTTP response, any code you define outside of the then is chained to it automatically. Okay. So they're saying here, which mechanism should you use? Well, XHR is legacy. It's been around for a long time. It's supported by a lot of different browsers. All right. Fetch, on the other hand, is a more recent addition to the web platform. You really should learn both. Fetch will become more popular as IE declines in usage, all right, in favor of Edge or some other browser, but you might need XHR for a while yet. Before we go through this more complicated example, now let's see, this one we've already looked at before. All right. And I'm hopefully very quickly, going to do a view page source on here. See if we can look at this. This is much more complex than the first one that we looked at. We'll come back and look at this more complex example in just a bit.